ready to go? I move we open the meeting it's 7:03. So welcome to our Appropriation Committee meeting tonight. Tonight it's basically we have our open forum. We can discuss it, an appropriation chair nomination election. It's that time if we choose to do it. We do have 4 out of 5 people here today. Approval of meeting minutes and the year-end budget transfers review. Specific appropriation discussion, and then we adjourn. So anyone for the open forum? I don't think so. So we can move on to item number 2. So appropriation chair nomination and election. So I added that. Usually this is the time of year we do it. And I just want to say that I think this year we have, in the last couple of years, we've had people who just did not want to do it. So I kept on doing it probably for 7 years, 8 years. I've lost track. But I do think this year we do have some people who might be interested and who want to do it next year. So I'm leaving that open for discussion for any nominations. Who'd like
So
to be.
are you trying to say that since Shahajul's not here, it's easy to elect him?
Well, I don't know if we'll ever have a total of 5 people, but I'm asking Wayne, Rebecca, Todd, if you'd like to do it. This is not a one person chair, so.
I'll be very honest. There were times during the year where I thought, this year I think I would discuss with other members, they're interested in having me as chair, but I think you did a great job. I see the dedication that you have to it and the time commitment that you've put into it. And I'm not as eager. That being said, if it's something where other people just, whether it's you wanting to take a break, I know you've had it on your shoulders for a number of years, or other people not being interested, it's certainly something that I'm willing to help out with and jump into, but I'm certainly not as eager as the young lad was last year.
I don't know, Rebecca, are you interested in doing it?
No, actually, I'm not. I'm way too busy with my other commitments. I had to seriously consider re-upping for this next 3 terms. So
Wayne, you have more time on your hands.
But we may be I'm on public camera. Maybe looking at a reload. I don't know. It depends where I wind up working.
Anyway, I thought everyone did a really great job.
Do we have to do it today, or can we?
Yeah, can we do it?
We can do it when Shahadul is, if he wants to do it. I'm just leaving it open, just that this is not like this is my committee, I want to do it. That's definitely not the case. It has not been, and it is really, I know I do work right in the area, so when we have monthly meetings, it's easy for me to hop on over to do it. So I know not everyone has that.
Do you want to, have you had enough? Not to put it bluntly.
Are you trying to find a replacement?
It's the most polite discussion of chairmanship I've ever heard.
Because it's a thankless job.
and you knock it out of the pocket.
And if you double my salary, that won't even help.
There's some interest in there, I think, but there's also a desire to let other people to contribute if they want to.
But I'm also willing to wait till September, let you think about it, if you want to do it.
And one thing I'd like to consider is maybe like a vice chair that actually, when you're doing like meetings with the boards, like the budget meetings, maybe having the chair and the vice chair be there. And in case someone can't make a meeting, then you've got some coverage. But I also think that way we get more of the committee's viewpoints represented at those meetings.
It's definitely something we can talk to the town manager about.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like we should probably table this to the next meeting. I think that, having it added to the agenda, was, relatively short notice. Nobody's fault, but it was relatively short notice for discussion or anything like that. And,
Okay.
maybe if we
I just wanted to bring it up. I didn't want to
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
bring it up, and if it wasn't on the agenda, I didn't think it was appropriate to bring it up.
I would like to just add that, you know, Mike, I think you did a great job this year. You know, again, I made a comment about the time commitment, and, you know, I mean, that's just downright truth, you know, I mean. you
I
gotta-
appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we'll move it on to the next meeting, which will probably be September sometime, in the September
Well,
timeframe.
when we have, I may want to discuss that later on. So, I didn't know what the specific appropriation discussion item was, but,
There is another,
specific item.
yeah, well, Ben will talk about it
Okay,
when it comes
okay.
up.
Well, then, while we're talking kind of about how we govern, I actually was wondering if we could potentially meet before the budget session kicks off. I know as we were reviewing the budget, we felt we were kind of after things had happened, and we weren't able to really provide advice
Mhm.
or potential direction to the people putting the budget together. So if we could meet, and I don't know if it's right after the budget kicks off, while the budgets are being created, I think we had some, recommendations about funding certain funds or how to think about, the strategy following our financial policies. And I know we do have some financial policies that might be good for us to review them as a committee, and then potentially provide some recommendations as the budget season kicks off, which would mean we might need to meet before that official kickoff time, so that we would be able to provide some recommendations at that point.
And as chair, we do have these monthly meetings, everything kicks off in November, and we pretty much don't hear anything until the end of January, but there are these monthly meetings, and usually it's about the progress or things that are going on, so there really isn't much input until all of a sudden we see all the numbers put together. So it does happen kind of quickly,
Right.
but
So maybe,
we can definitely do more
Yeah.
if there are issues coming up.
and maybe in September, we could meet just to kind of review where we think, the town finances are. I'm not sure if end of the year stuff is closed out by then. We can get a look at how the year ended.
Okay, well, I think in September, that's when the budget schedule will come out, so we have to meet to discuss
Okay.
the schedule and are the dates to give us an appropriate amount of time to review, so
Yeah.
that will be the first one coming up.
Okay.
All right, the approval of meeting minutes. Seems like we're going backwards here. Usually we do this at the end, but Rebecca, you did provide meeting minutes for May 2nd. So I'm looking, I don't know if people have had a chance to review it. So if we can have a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of May 2nd.
Second?
Second. Discussion?
Just say they're awesome.
I thought they were awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it, Rebecca. So all those in favor of approving the May 2nd, 2019 minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0, the motion carries. All right, next item is a year-end budget transfer. At review and,
So, just to kick it off through the chair, what I did in the packet was try to have a summary sheet on the front. At the top portion represents just what was done last year, as far as the action concerning the committee is concerned. This year, we already have used $60,000 of the reserve fund, which is the oversight of just the appropriation committee, for the assessors for a special appraisal that was done. And so part of our recommendation for the remainder of the money, or the full remainder of the money in the reserve fund, the town has had an excessive amount of legal action concerning the LNG plant. So the expenses thus far for that this year have been over $124,000 with an additional month of unbilled services to go. And it's been averaging about 15,000 a month. So that's where pretty much the basis of the overage on the town council account. So we're recommending the remainder of the reserve fund, available funds of $65,000 to cover a portion of the overage. And we're also recommending an appropriation transfer from the health insurance benefits fund to the legal services fund. Do you want me to just speak to all of these as we go, or and behind in the packet is the detail for each one of the things that I'm speaking to, so.
So how do we have to vote on these? Is it one motion, or do we vote for each?
You can vote for them each, or you can vote for them separately. It's your call.
I just have a question, not so much as far as, where the cost is derived, but where the money's coming from. On the health insurance overage that we have, is that overage, is that due to when the budget was passed, assuming one increase for health insurance for the coming year, and then actually realizing something less? Or is it from turnover and there being, gaps where positions aren't in play? And
So it's pretty much a combination of both this year. So in the planning phases, they're anticipating a number of turnovers either way. So like family plans versus single coverage and those kinds of things. So we have a lot of unfilled positions that have occurred. And we've also had less activity with people coming on or transferring from family or having events that would qualify them.
So what was our overage, and what's that as a percentage of what the budget was?
So the overage is about $434,000 and
5%, something like that?
excuse me.
Is that about 5%, somewhere in that area?
But it's under 5%.
Under 5? Okay, all right. Thank you.
So however you want me to do it, I can go through the list and explain them, and then you can vote at the end, or, whatever works for you.
I think I'd like to see an explanation of each one up front, and then,
Sure.
then I think it may be just easier to discuss, and then vote the whole package.
Sure.
Because there are quite a few.
Do we want to consider our reserve separately from the transfers? Or is that all one big motion?
Do we have to specify each account from and to in the single motion? Or is this an official, this handout, is this official that we can do it in two motions?
So you'd have to vote the reserve fund transfer separately, but the other ones you can vote in its entirety.
Okay. All right, let's discuss each section.
Sure. So as far as the legal transfers that have been proposed, the reserve fund for $65,000 and the $94,343.91 from the appropriation transfer from the health insurance. Are there any questions, or are there anything else I can answer on that one?
Sure, so this is all related to the increase in the litigation for the increase in the assessment of the LNG plant, right? Remember that came up probably 4 years ago, when,
It's an appeal of the assessment.
Yeah.
We are defending the appeal of the increased assessment.
But didn't we already fund something a couple of months ago with that?
We probably, because this is ongoing and expensive,
Yeah.
but I don't remember a
It was
transaction.
like last November or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So this was, I think, 4 years ago, they brought in this firm who came up with a plan. The idea was, you've got this valuable asset, let's, I mean, for lack of a better word, milk it for as much as we can get out of it. Is anyone looking at the whole, has anyone stepped back and said, you know, we're just moving $150,000, is it worth it? I mean, there's somebody looking at this whole plan.
The answer is yes, that there's a lot at stake here.
Yeah,
Especially if they recapitalize this plan at some point. It's important for us to get the right baseline for this major facility.
yeah.
Is there any opportunity to recoup our legal fees if we win?
I don't believe so. I think it's our obligation to defend our position.
Yep.
And I think they have the right to appeal.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's like they're bringing suit where we could get fees.
Yeah.
They have a right to appeal, and we have to afford them that right.
And does our obligation have a basis in, I mean, does it make financial sense? If someone said, this is our probability of coming out here, we're gonna spend this to get here, does that work?
So I don't know what I wouldn't speak to the probability. I believe our case is a sound one,
Okay.
and that we will be better off when it's over. I don't know what the board will do. I don't know how the board will rule, but I think we would be remiss if we did not try to tax that facility at the full and fair value. So it's.
One thing we're confident of is that all the attorneys are gonna win.
The attorneys will be well compensated.
And to Tim, your point, the Eversource is going through an upgrade process for the LNG facility currently. It's a 2-year process.
And in the longer term, there's even more talk about doing more there. So it's a major factor in the town from many perspectives.
Okay.
As a former DHS headquarters staffer, there are just layers and layers of issues with having a facility like that in your town.
I remember the presentation very well.
Any other questions? Good questions? All right, next, Dave?
So the next one is for our veterans benefits services. This is a state chapter 115 guidance where we provide, we have a regional veterans services system. We belong to a regional delivery of services, but it's basically these are people that live in the town of Hopkinton that have provided military service to the country, and there's means to try to help them to whether they're having some physical issues, they're having some issues adapting back to their environment, and or they fallen on hard times. There's a provision. The great thing of the great thing of us helping, in addition to helping these people, is that the state reimburses the town 75 cents on the dollar for every dollar that's spent in that, and that's so we get it back. It just is there's a lag between when we get it. It's usually in the next year. So we provide the service, we get the money back the next year.
So when it comes back, it just goes to the general fund?
Sure, it comes back as revenue from the state.
So I guess my question again is just kind of going back to the bucket of finance and accounting expense. What is that typically used for? And, you know, how big was the bucket, you know, compared to what we're transferring?
So the original bucket was $46,000. That was we also pay a fee on top of that, but that's assessed, and that has to do with the regionalization and administration. of the program. So that's an outside factor. This is just we're over in the budget because of the services we provide to our military veterans.
Well, yeah, I don't have any problem
And
with
so
funding that piece.
it's gone over, so it's, 18, almost 18,400.
So
So-
you're asking about the finance
Yeah,
budget?
yeah, no, my question is, so we're transferring 18,000 from the finance bucket, if you will.
Sure.
The original finance bucket was 46. That's,
No, so the finance, the interpretation of that is because there's been a large turnover in how the finance department had, and in fact, I'm new, Ben is new, and Tim is new to the organization after the budget was developed. They tried to anticipate that, but we all came at different times, so well into the year. We came in, so there was some savings there, so there's a recoup
okay.
of that funding.
So is this extra amount, was it unanticipated, or you don't know who's suddenly going to ask for
And
these
so the
services?
survey there hasn't been an expansion of services to people that are already enrolled in the program. These are all new individuals that have brought it up over.
Like when the schools get new students.
I just thought I'd ask. Any other questions? The next one?
So the next one is a minor shortfall in the DPW admin budget for personal services. And within, even though it's admin, it's not just the people that are salaried. There is a person that's entitled to make some overtime. It encompasses about $3,000 worth of that overage.
Any questions? Next, town engineering.
This is a request by the town engineer. There's some additional findings that we've just discovered in many of our projects that are existing out there that while the town believed that we could rely on our utility providers to give us certain information concerning our utility connections that exist. In fact, when we've approached them for that information, they told us that we're responsible. So in order to do that, because there's so many different projects going on in town that require this information, the town engineer has requested that this amount of money to begin to do some base mapping of utilities as we move forward to the large projects that are occurring around town.
So we have many utilities that are mismapped or unmapped, including stormwater drains and conduits and utility runs. And we do not have the information the town needs to have to move forward on other things. And so we need to fill out this data set.
And this came up when?
We became aware of it in planning for some of the big projects that are about to launch in town. But it's really not part of the big projects. Just the timing is that we only became aware of it when we thought we could get this from Eversource. You know, there's this concept that if you're gonna dig a hole in your yard, you can call the utilities and they'll come out and tell you where all your lines are and everything. And apparently that doesn't apply to us fully, and it's not gonna be satisfactory for the scope of work we need to do.
So, but when did we?
In the last couple weeks.
The last couple weeks.
We did not know this at the town meeting.
No, we did not.
And so that's 90,000. I know my other questions have been on the source side, but now on the transfer to side. What's the current town engineering budget?
That was budgeted at $50,000.
So now we're basically tripling it with this transfer.
So the town engineer here has I would call it an atypical set of responsibilities, being the manager of our few central buildings and then having this broader duty for all the infrastructure. And we typically don't fund anything for the infrastructure end of their duties. It's typically new mini splits or things for the buildings. So I think this is that the variation comes from the fact that we don't have an ongoing spend plan on infrastructure.
So this 90,000, which projects is this going to help us prep for?
Well, it's certainly gonna help with the Main Street corridor. You know, and so there's work we need to do to move that forward that we are not prepared to do.
Okay.
That's not part of the digging and not part of the paving and not part of but it's information that we should have for the whole town, like the location of storm drains and storm, you know.
So are we doing it for the whole town, or are we just doing it for project areas?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't have the answer to that either.
So right now, we know that it'll help the downtown corridor project. Do we know any other projects that this is going to help?
I don't know. My guess is we're probably not trying to solve the whole problem with this amount of money. Because that's a bigger problem with a longer timeline. I think this is probably gonna get us through the immediate issue, without deferring or delaying anything that's planned. So I don't think we're just gonna randomly go to places that are not gonna have work and try to fix that out of this.
Yeah,
But I think at some point, we're gonna try to do that.
yeah. I don't know, personally, before voting on that transfer, I'd feel better if we had a more firm understanding of where this money is going. I understand that it's gonna help downtown corridor, and if someone said, yeah, it's all going to downtown corridor, that's fine, you know, that's the information. But it just kinda seems like we're not really sure what else it might be helping, if anything else.
If we don't vote on this, does this hold up the Main Street corridor project?
So you would just vote no action on this, and it would be taken into account at the selectmen. It does require a positive vote on both sides.
So it could endanger the progress on the near-term things.
Yeah,
Just
but
don't-
only to the point of us getting together and finding out more information, theoretically, right?
Well, we have a timeline. When are the selectmen gonna select?
I think we have to like July 10th or something.
And again, so the selectmen only meeting July 9th, and we have a deadline of having this passed by the 15th of July.
So is this a not to exceed 90,000, or this is we have an estimate that came in exactly at $90,000? Is this to have?
Well, it's a
contract?
transfer. If it's not all spent, then it'll go just as unspent money goes and become free cash in the next cycle. So we think it's sufficient to keep the program going. But it's not like we're spending it without some outcome.
If this is tied to several projects, would there be any requirement to account for it within those projects?
I'm sorry, can you?
To capitalize it for user?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it's gonna be. I mean, if it were to put in a pipe, we would have to capitalize it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the form of the expenditure is gonna be. It could be some here, some there. I just don't know. Dave is, I hate to say this, he was out sick and now he's out of the country and we have very limited comms with him, so we were trying to get more information on this.
Did he not have his paperwork in order? He get thrown out of the country?
No, I believe he's traveling on leisure.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to discuss the next one?
So this is something that the police have brought forward that they would believe would be a benefit to the public safety and public information outreach programs. The electronic message reader boards, which could provide, certain key information that concerns anything that's going on in town, and they'll be mobile, so they could be moved to different sections of the town to get the message out where need be. So this is something that they feel is would be a great sort of media, not blitz with the town, but a great way to get the information out when things are going right, or even if there's, an awareness thing going on, so.
It's similar to the ones that we already have, and they just want to add more, or is it something different?
So.
We have one or
currently
two
have
already,
one.
don't we?
I see one on
DPW
South.
has one.
Okay.
So it would be in addition to that, and similar. It could also assist in traffic enforcement.
So this could be the westbound sign. Often it's like a section of town has a parade or a race or a event or shutdown, so you want to be able to get that word out.
Where do the signs at marathon time come where they're telling you the road's going to be closed? Because those are all over town. Is that a similar type of sign?
It's a multifaceted message board. So Westboro, for example, if you drive through their the Rotary, they have a larger message board to display, town meeting coming up next
Right.
Tuesday. Whereas I think what you're referencing is just your speed is 30 miles an hour, slow down. I
There's
think.
those, but there's also the ones that say, road closing at 7 a.m. because of the
Right,
marathon,
so
that they have
the-
in place throughout town.
The town owns one,
Okay.
by the DPW. Other contractors may bring those in as they're
See.
doing work, but they're not owned by the town.
Any other questions? Next.
The fire chief has brought forward the, this next request. He is trying to prepare to bring on his 4 new firefighters, which would require full gear uniform layout. This request here is for a small part of that turnout gear. As you can see, the prices for 4 is fairly reasonable, I would think, but there is a need to get this, so they'll have it on hand when they're ready to begin.
Did you say that was the full cost of the gear or partial cost?
So it's not the entire uniform. I believe I did document it. I think it's coats,
Pants, helmets, and
Helmets and
boots.
boots.
Okay.
coats, boots, helmet, and something else.
Air packs?
Pants.
Pants.
Thank you.
Go with pants.
No suspenders, though, huh?
Any other questions? Next.
You ready? Next one. So the fire chief also has come forward. This is a fairly recent event that just occurred. His exterior lighting system for the outside of the main fire station, which illuminates not only the front entrance, but it also illuminates the presentation of the flags. And those things has failed, and they're in dire need of a replacement. So he's brought forward this request.
No questions on this one.
Great. So the final request is, you have, the town has, upgraded their public safety communication, system, which entails, not only hardware, but also the connectivity, from copper to, what's the medium?
Fiber?
Digital, I think.
Digital.
It's a
This is a
fiber.
digital
Yeah.
medium now. And so with that, there were, what they weren't able to elicit from the provider, Verizon, was, with this new equipment comes new fees on top of, what was, so this is unexpected, fees that have now been put forward by the provider, who is Verizon. So, we're trying to bridge a gap here, with this $7,500.
Look, I don't pay enough for the box on my TV now. I have to put taxpayer money into this too. So this is fees, so this will be ongoing. Does this amount cover the fees for from next year?
Yes,
For the entire year?
yes.
Questions? All right, so I have a general question, and this is really about my memory recall. Did we fund was it for the celebration, was it the Hopkins celebration?
That can be,
That is funded or is not?
it is funded within an existing budget line item where it's appropriate to spend from.
That's correct.
So there was enough surplus in the manager's budget to fund the celebration without a transfer. We would have transferred it from the manager's budget to the manager's budget and then spent it, but it's not necessary, it's within the discretion of the line item.
I just wanted to make sure, because I knew
It's
we took it out of the main
absolutely
budget, and
This would be your last term.
When we started the discussion tonight, I'm thinking, I better see that transfer, and I forgot, so thank you for that.
This would be your last term as the chair if that didn't happen. I'm predicting that, I don't know that.
or allowed to be seen in Hopkinton.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you, I guess, do we want to, I guess the next step is to discuss if we want to take it all in, well, we can do one item because some of it's just out of reserve, that's one vote. But the second vote, did we want to, I think we have to decide whether we wanted to take out the engineering expenses, whether that's a discussion.
Do you want to try calling Norman and see if there's more illumination he can provide or background on this engineering expense that we don't have?
Yeah.
We, you know, it probably would be more helpful to have all the department heads in when we do these, but we thought we could try to cover it without pulling the whole team in. Maybe we should do that in the future.
Speaker.
Bringing the person in from out of the country would be
I think it's
a big sacrifice.
In my house, the rule is if you want the money, you have to be there to ask for it.
Hey Norman, it's Dave. You're on speakerphone.
And on TV.
Put in here a mic.
With all the
Mike
town
and company are here with us.
and the whole town.
Can you put it near one of these things? Maybe we can all hear it.
So we were wondering if you had any further expanded knowledge about the town engineer request for the $90,000.
Yeah, why don't you review what we said? Can you tell them?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I apologize. I'm in a very noisy place. This is funding for engineering services. And engineering services entails survey work, completing reports, and this has come about because of the expanded responsibilities of the department. I think you're all familiar with what the town has been doing at LNG for the Eversource project, the work that we've been doing at Fruit Street, the work that we've been doing at Center School, and also the base mapping that is required. At the time we went to town meeting regarding the Main Street Corridor project, we were not aware of. Our work with utility companies, our work with the former company that did the base maps, such as Better Engineering, has required this additional work.
So it's more than the Main Street corridor. It also includes Fruit Street, Center School, and other sites. Is that correct?
Yes, including also the LNG work that we're doing legally with Eversource.
And Norman, the $90,000, that is just to we don't have an actual estimate of what the work will cost, but this just, will cover it?
Yeah, I will need Tim to repeat that for me. Sorry, Tim.
So the question is, Norman, that we don't have a firm estimate on the work that needs to be done. This is trying to get enough funds on hand to anticipate costs.
That is correct, although we can say some of the work has been done. For example, the additional engineering work that needed to be done for the center school work, I think, is complete. Part of the work for the LNG pieces has been done. So it's a combination of work that we already started and work that may be needed to complete the processes for the project that we've identified.
Could you ask him roughly how much is being anticipated for Main Street corridor?
So the question is, Norman, roughly how much is anticipated for the Main Street corridor project?
Here's what the big issue is. I think some of you may be familiar with this. When we engage with utility companies, it's very difficult for them to give us firm estimates. What we have run into, for example, is Eversource, Verizon, telling us that the town is responsible for mapping the utilities from the right-of-way to the houses or the businesses, meaning the buildings. When we began this process, that was not our understanding. We thought that Eversource, Verizon already had plans depicting how people's services are connected. They're telling us they don't. So now we have to do those plans.
So I guess there was a question about capitalization, and it seems to me we would never capitalize an expense like that. That is just information to facilitate something going forward like that. So I think we probably don't have a capitalization issue with that.
That is correct, Tim.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, Norman.
Yeah, and again, as we've done in the past, if this money is not spent, it goes back to free cash. We just want to make sure that we have the resources at hand to finish this work. For example, with regards to center school, getting ready for the feasibility study, with regards to the Main Street Corridor project, making sure that we're ready for the bid process if the town is required to provide any administrative information. For example, drainage. I don't know if Tim and Dave had covered the drainage issue. We thought the town, as well as the consultants that have worked on this project, had the drainage plans for Main Street. No, they didn't.
Yes, we covered that, Norman. Thank you for bringing that up again, though. That's a key point.
Yeah. Again, sorry for the noise. I'm having my kids get a haircut here. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
So I think I have a better understanding of what it's for. I was just thinking of measuring a few of the utilities on Main Street, but it's really getting a better understanding of each house where we have to connect. We have to put underground or whatever. We have to make sure when you call dig safe to
Well,
know
now
what's
I'm
there.
with Tim, yeah, call DigSafe, have each owner call DigSafe and save the town $50,000.
Well, what is funny, what is interesting, that I once called dig safe because I wasn't sure where stuff was, and they just measure a certain amount of distance from the street. And they go, it's your responsibility going
After
up to your
that.
house. I'm like, really? Then why did I bother calling? So it's almost like the same response
Yeah.
I got, when I wanted to know where.
Put paint across my whole lawn.
No,
It's
they
good to have that second data point, because I've always assumed they would trace them all the way for you. And this is the first time I heard about it was,
No, they
in
did
reviewing
not.
this.
They would just
No,
do it
they
like
don't.
right by the street, and then past a certain distance from the street, it was up to me to figure it out.
What utilities are you talking about, gas?
And electric too.
I was talking about electric.
yeah, electric.
Electric up in the, isn't that the whole thing
So
we're doing?
Well, there's the other
Particularly
utilities
it's
too, they
built
could
in
have
the ground,
gas.
too.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't connect to the home.
Main Street, you're right.
Yeah.
Are they going to map it as they put in the underground? Can we make sure that gets done?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things we are realizing is that, there could be an event somewhere, and we don't have this kind of information. So we'd just be diving in, right, if there was a,
Likewise, when new neighborhoods get put in, we probably should be having the developers map that out as well.
And speaking with the IT department, they're actually moving toward getting the what's considered the better GIS product in the marketplace from Esri, so there will be the functionality there. We just have to make sure that we get the information from whoever provides us digitally.
Yep.
as-built are notoriously poor, no matter what your control is. And it seems like we don't even have the as-built we thought we had. So it's, complicates the start of some of these other projects.
So I'm fine including this in all the transfer recommendations.
All right, very good. So the next part is we have to break this into two different motions. One is that the items that come out of the reserve fund.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a transfer from the Appropriations Committee Reserve Fund to the Town Council Legal Fund in the amount of $65,000 for fiscal year 2019.
A second?
Okay, discussion? Okay, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of moving from the reserve fund to the $60,000 from the reserve fund to...
65.
I'm sorry, $65,000 from the reserve fund to legal expenses, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0, motion carries. Next is the fiscal year 19 appropriations transfers recommendations.
I can do it, you want me to do it?
So do we have to say each one, or?
You can
Say
see
it's
it's presented
documented.
in the agenda material, right? Yeah.
I think if you give the gross amount and you authorize the chair to sign each of the individual pages that sum to that,
That's correct.
that'll be sufficient.
All right, I move that we vote to approve the appropriation transfer recommendations as presented in the agenda material, and that we authorize the chair to sign the transfer documents
In the amount of?
in the total amount of $267,239.37.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? I think we discussed it as we went through each item. So all those in favor of the 2019 appropriations transfer recommendations in the amount of $267,239.37, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0, the motion carries. All right, excellent. Next on the agenda is specific appropriation discussion, and this is about request to consider a time extension for an existing pay-as-you-go capital item.
Correct. So if I could just start at 30,000 feet and direct you to the last page in your packet is a listing of the items that are being brought forward. So written in the bylaw in article or chapter 13 is any specific appropriation that is brought forward to town meeting is approved automatically expires 2 years after the approval. There's also in section 7, the appropriation committee has the authority to extend that automatic sunset. So these 4 items are items that we are requesting to be considered by the committee to be extended. We believe within conservatively the next 12 months projects will be complete, and I can run through each one of these items.
The regulations you're referring to are those town bylaws or state?
Town bylaws, correct.
I'm sorry, for each of these items, did you say the work is already in progress?
For the Lake Maspinock Dam, for example, the bid process is complete and the engineer is currently evaluating the bids. So in some cases, some of the work has begun, and others we believe it'll begin shortly. So I can run through each of those items. So the first, it was approved in our 2017 annual town meeting. Article 19E is the replacement of the overhead doors at the fire station. The fire station is expected to begin a replacement of the HVAC system through an existing appropriation within the next 3 months. We've done an RFQ with architects and are in the process of making a selection. It's the facilities department's hope that the architect will be able to oversee successful completion of that project as part of the HVAC work. If not, we do have bid documents that are substantially complete, and we're prepared to work with the facilities department to move the project forward. And it's also a point of note that the doors are failing, that there have been periodic repairs needed to be done to keep them operational. So they are beyond their useful life.
Why is an architect involved in garage door replacement?
So it doesn't need to be, but it provides additional oversight to make sure it's all, because it's a replacement of the whole system. So we could get a better price for oversight if it's part of an HVAC replacement. But again, if that's not a viable option, we're prepared to do it with the facilities department. So if there are any other questions, the next item was approved in the 2015 annual town meeting, the Whitehall test well installation. The project was delayed largely because of when it was submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection. They came back with comments. We responded to those comments and applied again. Eric Hardy is working with the engineer, and if this appropriation is extended, the DPW anticipates the project will be complete by the end of the summer, if not shortly thereafter.
And you said that if we wanted, we could vote this in a way to create an automatic sunset of the funding?
Certainly, you can extend it for another year and then it will automatically sunset. You could only approve that for 12 months if you so chose. It does not need to be permanent by any means.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And
is the maximum extension is a year?
That's correct.
So it's either a year or not a year, right?
right.
So
You
it'll,
could either vote to extend it for a year or not. Maybe you could vote to extend it 6 months if you wanted to. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, that's where I was going, but
But I don't think you could do more than a year.
Can't do
That's
more than
the
a
outer limit.
I mean, that was going to be my overall question. Do we vote for each one of these and we are voting for the length of time we're extending it to, or what is?
Yes.
So we're asking for the year because we think all the projects have merit. They've been appropriated, they're not done, and rather than peeling this potato twice, that's a new one. We think if you get the year, we'll be covered on them all. We won't-
so on this one, it's been hanging around for 4 years, and this needs to be extended after 2 years. So I guess my question is, the last 2 years, this board, I would assume, has voted to extend it. What information were we given, or, you know, everybody given, as far as where it was in the process?
Are you talking about the test well that has the number, the 15 at the end of it?
Yeah,
Okay, so you have the depth of knowledge that's more than what the three of us have on this.
no, I don't actually, but I think we were saying that when town meeting votes it, it's good for 2 years, after
Right.
that, it's gotta be extended, so I'm just.
So was
doing my
this
simple
voted in
math.
15 because of the 15 there, or was it voted in 17, or?
But right under it, it says
You don't have the
2015
answer.
annual
Yeah,
town
which-
meeting.
15 town meeting, yeah.
There was, all I can speak to is there was a lot of cleanup that was done when the interim came in before us,
Right?
that there was a lot of work that was not accomplished, that should have been accomplished.
So
So we're coming in after the fact.
if this wasn't extended last year, does that mean that technically our extending it really doesn't matter because it shouldn't be there?
You could look at it that way. I can't give you an affirmative answer.
Well, what we can tell you is before we do any spending out of this, we're gonna go back and confirm
That's correct.
that the action has standing.
Hmm.
Cause I didn't catch that. And I'm not intimately familiar with the underlying rules, so we have to check the rule and then check the facts.
Sure. Agreed.
But we need to vote on it before July 10th, if we're gonna potentially defer until you guys.
Do we? Because these aren't transfers, these are just extensions. So what
Does
is-
the select board have a role in this, or is it just the appropriations committee?
Just the appropriation committee.
Okay, so you don't have to do it right now, unless it's actually expiring.
Well, it's expiring because it was a town meeting article, right? Do they expire at the end of the fiscal year?
I think we're facing the end of the fiscal
End
year.
of the second year after, so it's the second fiscal year, I believe the language says.
Correct, yes,
So these are expiring July 1st.
correct.
2017 ATM would have done the budget for 2017,
Be-
18.
That would be fiscal 18 was when it would start.
And fiscal 18 and 19 would
Yeah,
be the
correct.
band. The question is really about this 15 one
Make sure it's right.
and this 16, I guess.
Yeah.
You guys have been on here the longest, don't you know?
I actually vaguely do, but I don't know if it's just the original article, or if I remember extending it.
For me, I think the bigger question is, you know, assuming that this committee voted to extend it, I'm just wondering what information was given at that time. You know, was it, yeah, we're almost there? You
Or
know,
was it the permitting process
And I
that
think
was
that-
holding things up?
I think that with that, you know, I mean, my inclination would be to say, okay, they're saying that it should be finished by the end of the summer or thereabouts. My inclination would be to say, all right, you got until the end of the calendar year. If it's not done by then, this is, you know, getting wiped out.
And we can do this?
That's what it sounds like.
Well, this one says, yeah, they expect it to be done by the end of the
You
summer.
don't like that, though.
Well, that's, you know, about what I like, what I think we initiate a large number of projects and we hope they're all gonna go very well. And I think all of us have experiences that say not every project always goes well. Things happen like the regulator steps in and makes you reissue the plans 4 times. So I don't necessarily equate every delayed program when it occurs because of things outside our control with a failure that should be punitively dealt with through a sunset. I mean, I think there might be, if the idea is that at some point things should go back to town meeting and be reauthorized again, that's an interesting point. But I'm always worried about interruption costs and you know, stop and start costs.
I don't want anybody complaining about interruption costs after 4.5 years.
Had a lot of it. You know,
All of a sudden, we interrupted.
I worked on a nuclear facility that we interrupted the construction, and the restart costs were enormous.
Yeah.
And the time lag was enormous. And,
I mean, you know, between now and December, if all of a sudden in
We can come
November,
back
yeah,
and-
they could always come back here. You know.
The board is,
I'm not trying to make things difficult, I just look at it as, there's probably a decent percentage of change in the voting population in the last 4 years too. And yeah. And I just don't like the stuff sitting around, being on the books and.
I don't know, though, if you can assume it was sitting around. It says here the DEP permitting process took longer, so now here's an issue with the regulators. And then when they came back, they said that they had to make some changes, so then you have to change your plan.
change it. and-
So those may be things that, it might not be that people are just sitting around. It might just be
So
like-
we have a 2-year timeline in a 4-year world sometimes. I think that's just
Yeah.
some fraction of the time. I mean, the dam was a similar situation, right? We thought we could handle it by draining the lake, and then people told us we can't drain the lake, so then we have to build a cofferdam. I mean, that was a long, complicated thing that we just came in on the end of, and executability is not always on a 2-year cycle, so.
I mean, I think all of these, with the exception of the historical site signage, they haven't even started, they haven't even done anything on that. The other ones are in progress and they have an estimated date and it's a few months over, and so I have no problem extending
And a
those.
commitment I'll make to you is that Dave, as the authorized certifying officer for the town, as the town accountant, irrespective of the vote, will verify that expenditures are appropriate and authorized given these timelines. So these have made it to this point without me discovering that question, and we will not do any improper expenditures if you vote to authorize these things. We will add a control point after the vote so that if any of them have timed out, after we closely evaluate the criteria, we will not expend any money if it's been timed out. We won't execute a bad order.
And the other thing, if, come next town meeting, if the projects have finished and have any residual money, or the projects that just stand still, and there's a decision that gets made, we can appropriate the unused balances and use it for funding in the annual town meeting process. So we don't have to wait till the end of the fiscal year to do any action.
Or let it go to free cash. It's
Or let it go to free cash.
which is, so it's not, this isn't an order to spend, this is an authorization to spend.
Right. Should we, Mr. Chair, should we take these one by one?
I think
Sure.
so, yeah.
I'll start with number 1 and just move that the board vote to approve the extension of funds for the garage door replacement for the fire department in the amount of $70,140.
I'll second.
And that's, you mean for a year?
Yeah, I would assume that without specifying,
It's a
it's
year.
for a year.
Okay. Do we have to specify a year, or it's okay?
It was my first time through this, but if you're planning to do a different one a different way, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Should be consistent, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Discussion? All right, all those in favor of extending the garage door replacement in the amount of $70,140, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0, the motion carries.
I'd like to jump ahead and move that the board vote to approve funds for the Lake Maspinock Dam repairs in the amount of $224,336.12.
I would second.
So we actually haven't reviewed this. They are now gonna not draw the lake down, right? They realize they can't do that, and so they're doing it a different way.
Correct. The cofferdam and pump it out, and
Okay.
then do the repair that way. That's what I recall from the.
Well, I thought the water level was going to be higher, so it required people in wetsuits and to be submerged.
Correct. So the original plan for the $140,000 was the lake could be drained to a certain level, that folks wouldn't have to go in wetsuits and do underwater repair and do a dam. But someone came forward that if that were to happen, they would not have water in their home based on the location and the level of the lake. That was then. So therefore, the bids came back much higher than the original appropriation. Additional funds were authorized for $110,000 in the special town meeting in February 2019. The bid process has been complete. So.
I think it's the other way around. The original was 110.
And then 140.
And then
correct.
we did
Excuse me,
140.
yes.
So this extension is actually only for the 110 piece.
So is the new method with building the dam around it and draining it, just that one section, or are they gonna use frogmen? Or do you not know yet?
I think they're still going to have folks go underwater. That's my understanding of it.
They're
the
basically
reason I
building a new
asked
dam to
is-
fix the old dam.
Right, that's the method. You have to build,
A
and
dam
then
in
you
front of
pump
the
out
dam.
just that section,
Yeah.
and then you tear it down, and they bring in like steel panels and.
So the reason I asked is just because with all the high water levels this year, if they had to bring it down, I was wondering if they're actually gonna, again, be successful or not, but it sounds like that's not the issue anymore. We don't have to worry about bringing the water down.
Correct, yeah. And as I said, the bids that have come back are in budget. At this point, it's a matter of selecting a vendor, and the engineer is currently reviewing that.
Yep.
Okay, we're ready for a vote?
And this, are we only though approving the appropriation of $110,000?
That's correct. That's all that's required
Okay.
as the additional appropriation.
And is that what the motion said, or did we do the full amount?
I'm sorry?
When we did the original motion, did we say for the 224,000 or for the?
I said the 224, but it looks like we only have to extend the 110.
Right. So we amend the motion to reflect the 110.
In fact, if you didn't approve the money, the whole project would come to a standstill anyway, so they'd have to go back to town meeting and ask for another appropriation.
So we're ready for a vote. This is to extend the $110,000 appropriation for the Lake Maspinock Dam, to extend it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0, motion carries. Does someone want to make a motion on the Whitehall test wells installation?
I move that we approve the extension of the Whitehall test, the Whitehall test wells install of $35,000 for 1 year.
For 1 year. Second? I'll second it. Discussion? Okay, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of extending the Whitehall test well installation for $35,000, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mike, you seconded, right?
I second it, yeah.
Lost in my
Was
notes.
it 4-0 or 3-0? 4-0. Motion carries. Okay. Do I hear any motion for the historical site signage?
When did you try reaching out to the Historical Commission? How long ago?
I would say approximately 2 weeks ago.
How long ago?
2
2
months?
weeks.
Oh.
2 weeks. Oh, they said 2 months.
So this is just $4,161 of the $15,000 that's left, right?
So the total appropriation was 15,000. They have spent approximately 11,000, and
Since-
4,000 is remaining.
Since 16.
That's correct, yes.
You know,
My inclination is to take no action, and it's not to stop them in their tracks if they have something planned, but when I look at the CPC funds, and the amount of money that's in the historical buckets over there, it seems to me like we should start spending some of that instead of asking taxpayers to, it's a small amount of money, you know.
I was actually gonna ask that, because usually this is under CPC funds, and is this general fund, or was this CPC when it was originally approved?
My understanding it was the general fund, it was not the CPC.
I'm actually surprised by that, because
Yeah.
usually everything is, although I guess my memory doesn't, I just don't recall it, but usually for historical signs and stuff, it does come out of CPC, because there's so much money, that's why I'm kind of surprised there. And I do feel if they, as Todd says, if they need it again, they'll be able to go through, they usually go through CPC.
It's also worth noting that I looked at the expenditures out of this and the expended funds at the end of fiscal 18, the beginning of fiscal 19, over a period of a few months, and there's been no action in this account since that time.
I think I'm looking at it from a slightly different angle. I think just as stewards of the taxpayers' money, if it hasn't been spent since 16, different from the other ones. The other ones, there appear to be a lot of external factors, lake level,
Yeah.
that the state's inaction. The money's out there, it was approved, hasn't spent, it's been over 3 years. I think it's time to come back. If you want to do it, come to us again.
And it's an item where there's
justify it.
no time sensitivity
Exactly,
whatsoever.
exactly.
You wait longer, it's even more historic.
I was gonna say, there'll be more signs.
You create. I think that's,
Your own setup and spikes.
so how do we do this, I guess?
Well, if we don't do any, we don't have to vote no action, because if we just do nothing, it just expires. I take it.
Correct.
Yes, if you don't take action, it will expire. I would just say, and I haven't talked to anybody about this, I don't even know anyone on the Historical Commission. It's a volunteer citizen board. And so if it was a town department, I would, every sentence you said would ring very true to me. But the only thing I think of is it's a volunteer citizen board, and there may be signaling there that, I would not necessarily hold the volunteer citizen board to the standard of administrative compliance
Response.
that I would with everybody else. So that just,
So why is this on the list?
it's on the list because Ben was proactive and saw that it was a unexpended balance, and because we didn't get we didn't hear back from them, and they could be on vacation or.
But nobody asked for it. They didn't bring it up, they didn't ask for it.
That's correct. We reached out to all of the departments and commissions that had funds that would have expired. There were some that are going to expire, that the projects are complete, that we're not bringing forward to you, that are automatically going to revert to the general fund. There are others that there are going to be a few more expenses prior to the sunset date, and then whatever remaining funds will expire as well. So these are the only ones that this last one didn't have a response, or the other three above it were requesting to have
So
a little more time.
I look at a couple things. I mean, first of all, again, this is a 2016, which means that it would have had to have been extended last year for it to make it to this year. So, that's something that we would have to research anyway. Secondly, it's a partial balance of the overall appropriation. It's roughly 4,000 out of the $15,000 appropriation. What's typical in a situation like that? If, a project is finished and they're done spending whatever money they're gonna spend, is there usually notification that's given somewhere that says, okay, we're done, keep the rest? Or does it just sit out here until it
That's what you would hope to
expires?
happen. But I think it's probably common that people just say, well, that's the unspent balance and it's gonna go to free cash, and
Yeah.
and it's that normal renewal.
Yeah,
Totally different from the federal system, and I think the state system where the money expires, if you don't obligate it by the end of the year, it goes away and it's gone forever. Here, it just becomes free cash and gets recycled into the system.
yeah, I mean, I'm all respect to the volunteers who are running that area, but I'm pretty comfortable with taking no action.
I like the idea of thinking ahead, though, and putting it out there.
Yeah, and as our first time through the system.
Taking no action, but I think that's great, what you folks were doing.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I do apologize that we're here at June 27th, I'd bring this forward to you now. I can say, as the procurement officer, I am actively tracking the pay-as-you-go special appropriation articles, and we'll have more regular updates for you on an ongoing basis. Until recently, I wasn't aware of this particular bylaw, but I do promise to the board that you'll hear about this sooner from
No
me.
need to apologize. Thank you.
All right, so,
Do we vote to take no action? I guess we never.
no. All right. So that's all the items?
Correct.
All right. Anything, well, I guess nothing else is on the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much. This closes out the
Fiscal year. Thank you.
See you next fiscal year.
Thank you for all your work.
I have
Happy
all
New Year.
these signatures.